I think you can start anytime. Well, wait.
All right. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission public hearing for Thursday, February 3rd, 2022. First item on the agenda is roll call. Ms. Hoeksma, will you do the honors, please?
Commissioner Callahan?
Here.
Commissioner Lynn?
Here.
Commissioner Malik? Commissioner Malik?
Okay,
Okay. Vice Chair Wamashanje
Present.
and Chair Sager,
Here.
and Commissioner Galuska is absent with notice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there any changes anybody would like to make? Hearing none. Next item, approval of the minutes from January 20th, 2022 meeting. Does anybody have any changes, comments, questions? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda is general public comment. Ms. Hoeksma, is anybody signed up for general public comment?
No, all our speakers are for agenda items, so.
Great, thank you. All right, that brings us to the public hearing portion of the meeting. Tonight's public hearing is regarding the 2021 Development Code Amendments, Batch 2, Miscellaneous Cipa and Tree Amendments. The purpose for the hearing is to obtain public testimony and for the commission to develop a recommendation to forward to the City Council on this topic. The process for the public hearing is as follows. City staff will present its staff report. The commission will be given an opportunity to ask clarifying questions. Individuals will be given an opportunity to testify. After all testimony has been received, the commission will begin deliberation and may ask questions of the staff. The commission will vote and then close the public hearing. I now wish to open the public hearing. We'll begin with our staff presentation.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Commission. So this is the 2021 Development Code Amendment number 2 batch. This is the miscellaneous Cipa and tree amendments that everyone should be familiar with. So kind of quickly recap what those amendments are. Take public comment, commission will deliberate on the amendments and then eventually forward a recommendation on those amendments to the City Council. So as you know, the batch has been split into 3 groups. The commission has reviewed these amendments six times since last July. The last time on January 6th, the commission didn't have any additional comments or questions. So there isn't any changes, anything new from that meeting in your packet. So, I mean, as an effort to be considerate of the commission's time, staff is recommending that perhaps the commission vote as a group for the miscellaneous amendments, and then perhaps group the Sipa amendments in one vote. And then since there's a lot of comments and questions around the tree amendments, we could go through those individually. And I do have slides for each of those amendments. So to remind the commission, the miscellaneous amendments are a mix of updates, clarification, and policy changes related to parking, setbacks, administrative fixes. It also has to do, like I said, with setbacks and new code for adaptive reuse of commercial buildings. And staff does recommend that the amendments miscellaneous amendments be approved as written. The Sipa amendments, these are the amendments related to the State Environmental Policy Act process that identifies and analyzes environmental impacts associated with governmental decisions. These decisions may be related to issuing permits for private projects, constructing public facilities, or adopting regulations, policies, and plans. The Cipa review helps agency decision makers, applicants, and the public understand how the entire proposal will affect the environment. Cipa can be used to modify or deny a proposal and to avoid, reduce, and compensate for probable significant impacts. There are thresholds established by the city when Cipa is required. For example, multifamily buildings with more than 60 units or commercial structures more than 30,000 square feet are subject to the Cipa requirements. So the amendments in the Cipa batch clarify how Cipa is reviewed, approved, and appealed when combined with various types of building permits and land use actions. It's important to note that none of the amendments in the Cipa batch will substantially change the city's evaluation of the environmental impacts of a development proposal. The amendments really attempt to clarify, clearly define the appeal authority for different types of land use permits, and also clearly define the process for Cipa appeals when required by a specific project. So moving on to the tree amendments. So these are mostly privately initiated amendments. As you know, there's one staff proposal in there, and it includes new and revised definitions, protection of trees during development, tree retention, tree replacement, and public notification. So the First Amendment is that would add the critical root zone and definition for inner critical root zone. Amendment number 2, this is adding a revised definition for tree canopy. Amendment also in amendment number 2, this is revising the definition of hazardous trees. This revision to landmark tree would revise the definition as shown on your screen. And I should say that these are the tree amendments that are recommended by staff, that's shown in attachment A of your staff report, and it goes on to add definitions for urban forest and urban tree canopy. Tree amendment number 5, this would revise section 2050-290, the tree purpose. And the proposed amendments here would clarify the purpose of the tree code and really strengthens the language of trees and shorelines commitment to protecting and maintaining the trees in the tree canopy within the city. Moving on to amendment number 6, this would revise 2050-300, the general requirements for trees. Staff does agree that the language should be added to provide additional protections for protected trees and vegetation where applicable. So the original amendment has been edited by staff for consistency with existing provisions in 2030 and 2050 of the Shoreline Development Code. For transparency, staff would like to draw your attention to the language that is highlighted in blue. It's added required for retention because not all the trees and vegetation on a development site will be retained and therefore subject to tree protection best management practices. For example, a clearing grading permit or post-issuance revision of a building permit may also be used. So therefore staff recommends deleting that reference. Amendment number 6, this is a continuation in the same section. In letter I, staff's recommending the underlined language and then also recommending that the language be struck in blue, being unauthorized development has been deleted to remove redundant wording. And then moving to section J, which was, let's see, section J, as you can see on the screen, the staff does recommend the language underlined. See, moving, and then also including K within the definition, which would add the site investigation section to the same section. And moving on to 2050-350, staff does agree with the applicant's proposed amendment to increase significant tree retention from 20% to 25%, provided that the recommended for approval on amendment number 9 is made as well, which would allow the director to waive or reduce the minimum significant tree retention if an applicant does meet the criteria number 2 as shown. And then staff is also recommending the amendment number 9, which includes tree protection during construction and on-site arborist observation when work is or near the critical root zone, and then also the increased size for tree protection fencing going from 4 to 6 feet, and then removing the plastic safety fencing. And then also amendment number 11 goes on to also show the proposed amendments on your screen. Staff does recommend, though, keeping number 1, which would be allowing the pruning of visible deadwood, since that is something that the city does agree with for the tree health and safety of the public. So with that, staff is recommending approval of all the amendments as shown in attachment A of your staff report. And we are here for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Zafran. Commission, does anybody have any clarifying questions they would like to ask before we open it up to the public? Commissioner Malik.
The 20 to 25%, Steve, increasing that. Could you clarify that for me just a little bit? I want to better understand it. I'm trying to find it on the list. I'm sorry. I remember we went over this, and this one, for some reason, I'm just having here we go. Development standard for clearing act increases significant tree retention from 20 to 25%. I mean, what is that? How did we arrive at 25% and not 30% or 50? You know what I mean? How did 25% become a number? What's significant about that?
That was the request from the public to increase it by 5%. Originally, there was an incentive table where everything was increased to 25%, and then there was a 30%. If you did 30% retention, you would get some sort of incentive. Maybe it was reduced permit fees or expedited permitting, and there was also high. The more you save, the more incentives you would get. Those incentives were pulled out, so we could possibly work on those in the future. But across the board, increase from 20 to 25%, is something staff can support, since most of the development applications that we see are saving more than that anyway. So I think it'd be good policy just, to increase it, since it's something that we support, and it's, not
Thank you.
not a big ask.
Coming back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Malik. Anybody else have any clarifying questions they'd like to ask? Seeing no hands, we are ready to hear public testimony. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per person testifying. The clerk will act as the timekeeper for each speaker. When your name is called, the clerk will unmute you. Please state your name and city of residence for the record. Ms. Hoeksma, has anyone signed up to speak?
Yes, I do have some, and I will start with them. And those that are on, if you have chosen to speak, if you intended to speak on the item 7A, which is later in the evening, please just let me know, and then we'll call on you then. The first person to speak is Susie Good. Miss Good, you are unmuted.
I'm speaking on 7A, I believe.
Thank you. I will save you for later. Thank you. Okay, the next person is Robert Gregg. Mr. Gregg, you are unmuted.
Speaking on the parking unbundling issue.
Is that now, Steve?
Yes, it is. That's in the miscellaneous amendments. So yeah.
Please state your name and your city of residence, and then you are ready to speak.
My name is Bob Gregg. I live in Clinton, Washington. We do a lot of development on your side of the water, including several projects currently in Shoreline. I just wanted to briefly support the staff's recommendation to unbundle the parking. I submitted a written document to make it a little easier for you. Just basically citing, I'm also a LEED accredited professional, and LEED, as I'm sure all of you know, is leadership in energy and environmental design. And they strongly encourage unbundling parking. Their studies have indicated that that's far more effective in getting people to use public transportation, ride sharing, carpooling, etc. And then by way of example, over in Kirkland, we're doing a project that has a shared parking agreement, which is also supported by LEED. And in Kirkland, the shared parking agreement requires that all the parking be unbundled. And that is basically based on the Institute of Traffic Engineers, which is the standard that most cities use. So basically, because it is better for the environment, it's encouraged by LEED, and it's required in many cases by the ITE. I think the staff is making an excellent recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Miss Good because you have your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you.
Yes, I apologize. I was also going to speak on behalf of the parking bundle. I didn't realize that was part of this one.
Go ahead then.
Okay. I also am in support of unbundling parking. My name is Susie Good. I reside in Seattle on behalf of property management company in Seattle that has properties in Shoreline. And we support unbundling for the environmental reasons that were just stated, as well as most of our parking garages that we have are not on a 1-to-1 ratio. So the way the law is written, it's harder to comply because we don't have 1-to-1 ratio parking for everybody. And not everyone in MFT units necessarily needs parking. And so then we're taking away parking needs from market rate units as well. Just having empty spaces for people who need it. So those would be the two concerns, are the environmental impact, and then the 1-to-1 ratio just isn't realistic in practice. And third, it's also hard to manage in logistic purposes for making sure that we have all the spaces if we're renting one out to a market and then coming back for an MFT because someone didn't need it. So that is all.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is William Turner. Mr. Turner, you are unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Bill Turner. I'm a resident of the city of Shoreline, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Tree Preservation Code team. Pertains to Amendment 2, SMC 2020-048, significant tree definition, the measuring of 6-inch diameter breast height. The cities of Edmonds, Redmond, Issaquah, Lake Forest Park, Linwood, Kirkland, Woodinville, Snohomish, Bellingham, and Seattle have defined 6-inch diameter breast height for their significant trees. Shoreline's own code definition for significant public street trees is 6 inches DBH. Unfortunately, Bothel's significant 8-inch DBH has been cited as an example. What was not mentioned is that Bothell is not a city to align with in terms of regard for trees. Bothell is sadly behind the times in tree protection. The Tree Preservation Code team is joined by the Citizens Advisory Group for tree recommendations in recommending 6-inch DBH for the definition of significant trees. This group submitted research to the Planning Commission on November 18th, mapping adjacent jurisdictions participating in this definition. This code was submitted to the city in November 2020, over a year ago. There have been time for public comments to be made at 4 Planning Commission meetings and time for additional research to be presented. The stipulation of 6-inch DBH for significant tree definition by multiple adjacent jurisdictions and the recommendations of the Tree Preservation Code team and the Citizens Advisory Group are all reasons for the Planning Commission to recommend the 6-inch measurement to the City Council. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, the next speaker is Nancy Morris. Ms. Morris, you are unmuted.
Yes, good evening. I am Nancy Morris, resident of Shoreline. You have already seen a number of my previous comments, both verbal and written, with supportive references on the tremendous importance for preserving our mature trees and why protecting such a vital resource for all of us in the city of Shoreline is so vital now with the climate emergencies we must withstand. So what else can I say at this very pivotal time tonight? During a past Planning Commission meeting night, way back in March 2012, the Planning Commissioners were faced with an equally demanding task of approving or not approving city staff recommendations for tree codes that were purposely written by city staff to be less effective at protecting trees than was advocated by citizens of Shoreline. What the 2012 Planning Commission did was really extraordinary in that they completely revised the recommended staff code amendments so that Shoreline in 2012 took its first major steps to begin protecting the public and private property trees in the city. They agreed with the citizen tree advocates then. The amendments went to City Council and were also approved. It truly was an amazing night to witness. This is all a matter of public record. So tonight, repeat the wisdom of the past 2012 Planning Commission. I implore you to recommend the Protected Tree Code Amendments 2, 6, and 10 as written by the Tree Preservation Code team, along with their other tree code amendments supported by so many residents of Shoreline. Stand now for the preservation of the trees in Shoreline, a public asset, and help mitigate the climate extremes we now face. I have said this before, that we all are tasked with a moral imperative to do what we can to mitigate climate change and the climate emergencies impacting our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, my next speaker is Kathleen Russell. Ms. Russell, you are unmuted.
This is Kathleen Russell, City of Shoreline, on behalf of the Tree Preservation Code Team. I'm a little confused by the staff presentation this evening, so I hope to be able to make my comment after this, but the slides that staff show are the ones they recommend or partially recommend, but the code team presented or submitted several more codes, proposed codes, that have not been addressed. They are in the study on the page following page 42, and these include Amendment 2, significant 6-inch definition, Amendment 2, second item, landmark 24-inch definition, Amendment 6, general requirements penalties, Amendment 7, tree exemption on large properties, and Amendment 10, we call it tree replacement, and the city titled it fee in lieu. So I'm wondering if the commissioners have the opportunity to also vote on these proposed codes tonight. That's my question. I'm just a little surprised that those weren't also presented by staff. Anyway, my comment is that the proposed tree codes before you will save some trees in our neighborhoods, especially at Muir 35 and 45 sites. These codes do not pertain to the 7 zones where none of the trees have to be retained. Please look at the big picture. Urban trees in Shoreline have been cut down or will be cut down at an unprecedented rate. 54 trees at Towns on 145th, 79 trees at Pulte 5 Degrees, 49 trees at 2300 North 147th, 15 trees at 2310 North 147th, 23 trees along 5th Avenue Northeast, 38 trees at WashDOT, 88 trees along 8th Avenue Northeast, 76 trees at Ballinger Way Northeast, 67 trees on Aurora just north of 185th, 26 trees at Fremont Avenue North, 15 trees on Westminster Way North, approximately 45 trees for the 148th Street non-motorized bridge. This list alone totals 575 tall trees, and more permits are in review. Non-hazardous public trees will be removed along 145th, 175th, 185th for transportation corridors and for 2 wide sidewalks in our neighborhoods. Trees are being cut down because they are located in the wrong place, as one developer stated. You as commissioners have the opportunity to preserve trees in Shoreline. Please recommend all of the proposed tree codes to council, and please ask to look at the ones that were not on the slides staff presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Ann Bates. Miss Bates, you are unmuted.
Ms. Bates, we cannot hear you.
Realized it. Okay, I'll start over. Hello, my name is Ann Bates and I live in the Ridgecrest neighborhood of Shoreline. This evening, I would like to express my support for the amendments as they were proposed by the Tree Preservation Code Team. They are amendments 2, 6, and 10. These are not harsh or severe changes, but will help preserve more and larger shoreline trees. The Shoreline Comprehensive Plan that should be followed states that Shoreline should maintain and improve its tree canopy. Development is resulting in cutting down trees that are needed to lessen the effects of global warming in our city and on Earth. Last year, Shoreline had record heat, record rains, and record freezing temperature. This needs to be kept in mind. I know that the city staff has denied the amendments mentioned above. The city staff are part of a bureaucracy, and it is bureaucratic staff who implement the rules, laws, and functions of their institution. I believe that staff may resist changes like these because of the extra work that is added to their regular duties. I was a bureaucrat for over 30 years in several large universities and remember complaining about additional work, so I am understanding. But these amendments are meant to improve the environment and health of shoreline trees and people in the face of global warming. I implore the Planning Commission to approve these changes and reduce the effects of global warming. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and the final speaker that I have that has signed up is Peter Eglick. And Mr. Eglick, you're unmuted.
Yes. Yes, this is Peter Eglick. I'm the attorney for the Innis Arden Club, which is in the city of Shoreline. It contains over 500 lots, at least 1,000 citizens of Shoreline. Innis Arden Club is the steward for 50 acres of forested reserve tracts. We've planted several hundred trees over the last few years in our stewardship. We don't take second place to anyone in our belief that trees and forests are important. However, what you have in front of you with some of the proposals by the Tree Code team and others is, we think, not well thought through and not well supported. Reciting a list of cities that have a similar provision to what's been proposed, ignoring the fact that there are other cities that don't, denigrating one city that doesn't because it's not a good actor, is not a basis for legislation. I haven't seen, and I apologize to you all if you have seen it, actual review of these proposed amendments by experts in the field, not articles, a third party about other areas, but experts who have looked over these amendments and explained what their effect will be. I have seen a comment by staff, I think in an earlier meeting of the Planning Commission, that said that some of these changes will affect 80% of the lots in the city of Shoreline. And maybe I got that statistic wrong, but I thought I saw it in the minutes. Well, that's a very broad impact. Yet, with all due respect, the dialogue here has been rather closed. Innis Arden was never invited as a stakeholder to participate in whatever conversations took place with city staff before these amendments were brought forward. When we found out about them, we submitted some comments. I think you should have my letters from December 2, January 6, and January 18. But really, our recommendation is that none of these amendments that with regard to trees should go forward. Instead, the city should establish a stakeholder process with an eye toward preparing an environmental impact statement that addresses what it means to make regulatory changes for example, 80% of the lots in the city of Shoreline. Just make a few other brief comments. I'm running out of time. One thing that was striking to me is in looking at some of these materials is one would think that there was not a state policy or even a national energy policy on solar access in looking at these materials. As far as I could tell, it's not really mentioned as a consideration in terms of what we're doing with the tree canopy as opposed to what that will mean, for example, for solar gain on individual lots. And yet that is as important a factor and is recognized nationally as such as tree canopy or some of the other considerations that are being mentioned. It all goes hand in glove in terms of dealing with climate change. That's the kind of thing that's missing from here. Similarly, with regard to replacement trees, there doesn't seem to be any science that's being referred to as to how you determine on a particular lot what level of replacement is actually appropriate, viable, and going to create the effect that apparently the city wants. The city's own engineering standards are actually in conflict in some ways with the aspirations of these amendments. So I suggest, on behalf of Innis Arden Club, that rather than adopt these amendments, including the ones proposed by the preservation team, or whatever the name is, and the ones proposed by staff, that the Planning Commission call for a comprehensive look, inviting stakeholders for public participation as the comprehensive plan requires, and then with an eye toward possible preparation of an environmental impact statement, then move forward when you're fully informed and have the data before you. And I appreciate the time to speak with you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Holtzman.
I don't have anyone else signed up. There are a couple other people in the attendees, but they haven't raised their hands. So I think that I think we're done with public comment.
Great. All right. With that, I will now close the public hearing.
Chair, I should mention that the staff presented the commission with the amendments recommended for approval. The other amendments that I didn't go over are in attachment B of your staff report, and the amendments that we're not recommending for approval. So the commission has those in front of them, and they are there. It just didn't, they weren't part of the staff recommendation. So that's why they weren't part of the PowerPoint.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now, as Mr. Zafran noted at the beginning of his report, we will break this up into 3 different parts, being the miscellaneous, the Cipa, and the tree amendments. So we'll start with the miscellaneous amendments. And I do believe that first we need a motion. Is that correct? Before we deliberate?
That's correct.
Thank you. Would somebody like to make a motion on the miscellaneous amendments? Vice Chair Ramachandra. You are muted, sir.
Excuse me. I move to approve the miscellaneous amendments as presented by staff. And as represented by staff, and to forward a recommendation for approval to council.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Malik. Vice Chair Ramachandra, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, I think that we actually went through the same exercise. We have really gone in and exhausted all the elements that are in the miscellaneous document that the staff gave us, and I think that it's well baked to the extent that we can recommend it for approval.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments, questions? All right. Seeing none, I believe we shall bring this to a vote to send these to City Council as presented in the staff report. Ms. Hoeksma, would you call the names for voting?
Oh, okay, thank you. Commissioner Lynn.
Aye.
Commissioner Malik.
Aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair Ramachandra.
Aye.
Commissioner Callahan.
Aye.
And Chair Sager.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That appears to be 5 votes to 0 in favor of sending that to council. The next portion would be the Cipa portion. Same thing. The first thing is we would need a motion. Somebody like to make that motion?
I can do it. I move to approve the 2021 comprehensive plan amendments, attachments B related to Cipa in the staff report dated February 3rd, and forward a recommendation of approval to City Council.
Great, thank you. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynn. Commissioner Callahan, do you wish to speak to your motion?
I do not. I think we've covered that.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any comments, questions that they wish to ask or speak to? Seeing none, we shall bring this also to a vote. Ms. Hoeksma, will you call roll for this?
Yes, Chair Sager,
Aye.
Commissioner Callahan,
Aye.
Commissioner Malik,
Aye.
Commissioner Lynn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wamashonje.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. That brings us to the trees. And for the tree amendments, I believe we were going to go through those individually. Mr. Zaffron, can you bring those up so that we know the order of those?
Sorry, did you want to see the go through on the attachment, or did you want to see the PowerPoint?
I believe the PowerPoint would be helpful.
Okay.
Okay, great.
So this is the, yeah, these are the staff recommended amendments.
Okay, and so then just for my own knowledge, question, will we make a motion on each of these individually then? Is that how it should go?
You could make a motion for the entirety of those that we're recommending approval, and then if there's any additions or deletions, there could be a amendment to the main motion. I'm sorry, Julie's gonna explain.
Great.
You already did the main motion.
Okay, good.
Bring these ones forward. So as you do each individual ones, if you're doing any changes to an individual amendment, I'd have it do as a sub amendment to that main motion. So you'd be amending the main motion. And then at the end, you'd have however many sub motions that would be going through with that main. Does that make sense?
Yes, I believe it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
May I ask a process question?
Yes, please.
So if one commissioner moves to amend and then says their change, and then another one seconds, then we discuss and vote. But what if another commissioner has a different change about the same amendment? So do we discuss it all at the same time, or do we wait and do another motion? Because I thought it was only one considered at a time, but what happens when there are different ideas?
Correct. Usually what happens is, a commissioner will make the sub motion. So you're proposing to change this amendment in some regards. There's discussion, and then you're going to vote to either approve or not. And then, if somebody else has a secondary sub motion that would then result in amending of that one, it would just kind of go down the tier line. So hopefully, you're not too off on your overall concepts for an amendment, or it can get pretty far down the line.
Okay.
I have a question for Ms. Taylor, also with regards. So in reference to Mr. Eglick's comments regarding a revisiting, of just the tree amendments, to go back to stakeholders, look at it as a part of the comprehensive plan. I mean, what is that process? I mean, where does that, can you talk me through that?
If you were going to, basically, you would not recommend approval of any of the tree code amendments. It would still move forward to council with your recommendation of, do not pass. And then they would make the ultimate decision on whether they send it back to the planning department for further work and consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, so if I understood right, we will have a motion for this overall tree amendments, and then we will go through them individually to make sure that we are all to see if we have any questions, or if there's some amendments that we want to make on each on the individual amendments. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And
thank you.
I'll jump in if anything goes too awry.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So would somebody like to make a motion to on the tree amendments?
I would like to make a motion that we decline the current tree amendments as written, I believe in Group C, in their entirety, and refer them back to staff for review, and also to include, more science and more stakeholder participation in all of it. I believe that there has been some stakeholder, some, private citizen groups that have well organized themselves and, represented themselves very professionally, which is great. But I don't feel like enough of a cross section of folks who are stakeholders in this community have been heard from. And I do think that there's a lot at stake here, in particular because this so impacts our higher density areas. It so impacts so many things that are going on. I mean, I don't know if any of you saw the article today or yesterday about bills allowing denser housing, even in single family neighborhoods. I think this is going to become a farther reaching issue. And I think it needs to be polished beyond what we have here.
Thank you, Commissioner Malik. Ms. Taylor, I see you have your hand up.
I'm, once again, I may have missed it on, internet drop or something, but I didn't hear anybody second Commissioner Malik's motion to recommend denial of those amendments.
Do we have a second?
Because usually you wait till it's second before you speak to your motion.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. Do we have a second? I do not see. Excuse me, Vice Chair Raman Shanjay.
Thank you.
I didn't, did you have something to say? I did not catch it if you did.
No, I just raised my hand to say that I second. And I was waiting for Malik to speak to his motion.
Great, thank you.
Thanks,
Commissioner Malik,
Chair.
do you have more to say?
No, thank you for that, for the second, and forgive me for reversing the order. Ms. Taylor's correct. I spoke a little in reverse, but said what I wanted to.
Thank you.
Just to add more, I would compel all of you to think clearly about this. This is a big issue. I think it goes to the character of Shoreline, our moniker of sorts as being a treed community, you know, one of the most treed communities, which is a beautiful one. It's a worthwhile, you know, meritable goal. It's just that getting there is going to take some strategy and some science, and, you know, also addressing the many other issues that we have. There's many ways to get to, you know, positively impact global warming, meaning to stave it off, other than just preserving trees, especially when you're doing it in an area like, you know, high density, right next to a light rail station. Other things that were very compelling that I've read, and in listening to Mr. Eglick's arguments, I would urge you all to consider this, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Lynn.
I guess I would like to also ask a procedure question first. So if I'm wanting to still consider that we forward these amendments to City Council for further discussion instead of like denying it for its entirety. So do I make a sub motion to for it, or how to take it from this point? I'm sorry, I'm not very clear on.
No, there's no need for you to make a sub motion when the motion comes up for vote before the commission for either to approve Commissioners Malik. When it when it moves forward to the council still has complete discretion on whether they want to reject your recommendation and still discuss and analyze the amendments on their own. They're not held to it. So even if you vote not to recommend approval, they still move forward to the council for their final consideration.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioner Lynn, did you have any comments you wanted to make regarding Commissioner Malik's motion?
Yes, I partly agree with Commissioner Malik's suggestion on, yes, we would like to have more study and more holistic look. However, I feel that there's a lot of effort has been put in, and this is moved, all these amendments were looked at and studied closely and for a long time. So these suggestions, some of them or many of them are all very aligned with many cities that are moving toward preservation or fighting the climate change. We are getting onto that movement. So I would suggest that in the process, we continue to improve our code with more considerations and possibly with these amendments plus the additional work that will happen in the future to modify or to with this as with majority of these amendment, and if needing further refinement to these amendment, we continue to work on it. The city staff will continue to work on it to make the code even more suitable for city of Shoreline to preserve the tree and maintain Shoreline's very treasured character. And so I really do not support completely voting all of them down. So that's my thought. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Callahan or Vice Chair Ramachandra? Vice Chair Ramachandra.
Thank you. The reason I voted to send this back and to have, the reason I seconded Malik's decision, recommendation is that a lot of work has actually been put in this. That's a given. It's absolutely, the staff has put in a lot of effort. We have heard from various groups of what the issues are and what it is that they need to preserve. And one of the things that I used for my own benefit is to see if everything is being balanced. In other words, whether we are balancing accountability and responsibility with respect to development at the same time. We understand all the needs, but we also need to see, is that being balanced? But mine was then, this issue itself is so very important to the city of Shoreline that more engagement with the citizens in Shoreline really makes sense. So that when we do engage as more people as possible and come up with amendments that represent the voices of the people in Shoreline, we are doing people in Shoreline a better favor as opposed to listening to a specific pressure group or the other. So that's where I'm coming in from, is that I know the teams have communicated, I know the teams have made the effort to reach the public, but can we do more? And it looks like there is an opportunity to do more. And that's why I said, no, I do agree that the teams, that there's something that we can work off of as is, we could probably work off of this, but there's also that opportunity to do a lot better. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anything that anybody else would like to say? I, for one, am in agreement with Commissioner Lynn. I believe it's, I know that there's more work that needs to be done, I think, but we've taken a step in the right direction. And I think that the citizens of Shoreline have spoken, and we need to recognize them, and we need to recognize all the hard work the staff has done to this point. And it's not over, but I think that these amendments are a good start. Commissioner Malik.
Thank you. My concern is that there's no impetus to really continue refining. There's going to be a lot of other work that we're going to be facing to deal with. And this just, if it's not on table to be, researched, revised, and voted on, it's not going to get done. It's, yeah, perhaps through some other means or some other process down the road, way down the road, things will be examined or looked at. But I think there's a lot more happening more quickly than we realize, and to have to continue to revise it in that manner. I think right now we have all these code amendments in front of us. We should do them as a group, and we should revisit it as a whole, and we should allow for a better cross section of the community to speak to this, including the Highland Golf Course, including other groups that I think could chime in and express whatever their concerns might be, or whatever their additions to the policy are, and where they think it might be soft or it might be too light, or too heavy-handed. But I just don't feel like, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Lin.
Yeah, I agree on the further study will be needed. And I also, like Chair Sager mentioned, that we are heading, this is a step into the right direction. And we are building city of Shoreline toward a green community, and we pride ourselves to be more moving toward more progressive on the green. And so in general, we, for these tree, like tightening up the tree amendment, I support this direction. However, I also think this is opportunity to look at, there's a lot of voice from the community to that feeling that we are losing tree coverage, the tree canopy. And this may trigger a better awareness that we may want to further looking into our regulation on how to up the inspection, up the toward like the newly planted trees, if they are supposed to grow and form a future forest at how they should be. Looking at these amendments, we can also say it's more of a movement, a direction, and there's still a lot of work need to be done. Yeah, that just trying to bring up that there are other more detailed regulation that can support for our future tree growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Okay, so I believe now we shall put this motion to a vote. Ms. Hoeksma, can you call roll for the vote?
Right, this is on the motion by Commissioner Malik. Vice Chair Walmashanjay,
Aye.
Chair Sager,
Nay.
Commissioner Lin,
Nay.
Commissioner Malik,
Aye.
and Commissioner Callahan.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That motion has failed by a vote of 3-2. Does somebody else have a motion they'd like to make on the tree amendments? Oh, yes, Ms. Taylor.
Sorry, since Commissioner's Malik motion was to deny the package in its entirety, we need a new motion to basically kind of open discussion on the whole amendment package. So just kind of make sure you get that overarching one too.
Great, thank you. Would somebody like to make that motion?
So this would be the main motion to the, okay, so I move to approve the 2021 Comprehensive Plan Amendments, Attachment C, tree codes to the staff report dated February 3rd, 2022, and forward a recommendation of approval to City Council.
Great, thank you. And do we have a second on that motion? Commissioner Lynn?
Sorry, I still need a little bit clarification. So once this motion is, once I second it, does that motion include the few that are not staff recommended? You know, that those there are three items that are not recommended by staff. Are we also include that in this package, or that is the next one?
So, excuse me, this is Julie Taylor again. So generally what you're doing is you're recommending approval of the amendments as presented by staff. So then you would be recommending, or you would be moving to recommend approval of only those amendments that staff has recommended approval of.
Understood. Thank you. Then I second. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Callahan, would you like to speak to your motion?
No, I think if we can just go through and on each one, I think we'll be good.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any overall comments they'd like to make? Okay, then I believe now we would then go through each of them individually. Is that how we are going to do that now? And vote on, do we vote on each amendment then?
Yes, you could vote on each amendment and then come back and do a vote on the whole main motion as it's been addressed individually. So if you have any changes, like you've sub-motioned on Amendment 2, so then it's the main motion as amended by the sub-motion for Amendment 2.
Got it. Okay. So tree amendment number 1. Is everybody in agreement with this? By roll call, Ms. Hoeksma?
Okay, so this is for C1, we, Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Galuska.
He's not
Oh,
here.
sorry. Oh, man. Commissioner Lynn,
Aye.
Commissioner Malik,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wamashonje,
Aye.
and Chair Sager.
Aye. All right, moving on to tree amendment number 2, tree canopy. Anybody have any comments they'd like to make regarding this, or questions, or shall we put it to a vote? Seeing no hands, let's put this also to a vote. Ms. Hoeksma, can you call roll?
Okay. Chair Sager,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wamashonje,
Aye.
Commissioner Malik,
Aye.
Commissioner Lynn,
Aye.
and Commissioner Callahan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Continuing on, I guess this is also part of amendment number 2, hazardous tree definition. Is everybody in agreement? Can we call roll and vote on this?
Sorry, I thought I was doing all of 2 with all the T definitions, but
Yes,
not
you're
right?
right. Yeah, you're right. I just hadn't seen it on the screen. So I believe we've been all through that though.
So that would include, like you said, hazardous tree, and then part of 2 is also the definition of landmark tree.
You're right. Gosh,
Do we need a separate one for each one? We can,
well, I would like to change my vote if it's for all of them, because I do not agree with the landmark tree definition. And I'd like to be able to change from 30 to 24 as it was recommended by the citizens of Shoreline. So I would not agree to send it to council as a 30-inch.
So,
Julie has her hand raised.
oh, good.
Yes, good.
Oh, you're testing my parliamentary procedure background. Well, first of all, Chair Sager, you're basically withdrawing your vote after the vote has happened, which we generally don't permit under the rules. And then also you're speaking to moving to amend the language that staff has recommended. So that would have been a motion to start with. And so
Yes.
amendment number 2, as I saw it, is all of the definitions in their entirety, and the opportunity to amend happens before that vote occurred for each and every one of those definitions that were in that package.
Yes, my apologies.
No, that's okay. I mean, it gets complicated when the vote has occurred and you're trying to withdraw and move at the same time because the vote has happened.
Great. Commissioner Callahan.
So I just wanted to say I was similarly confused. I thought we were going to be doing these one at a time, and I thought, we were just doing the trees and then going to do each one at a time. So I don't know where we go from here. Do we?
Well, I don't have my Robert's Rules of Order book before me right now. I would say that the commission could move and get a second to vote to withdraw the previous vote on amendment number 2. And then you'd have, if it passes, then you would remove to consider the tree definitions set forth in amendment 2, and then speak to each of those individually, those definitions individually. And, if there's sub motions to apply to change those, that would be done at that time.
Okay.
So if you want to break it down to reconsider it again, then you would have to move and second for a vote withdrawal, which is somewhat unorthodox, but and then to reconsider it due to the confusion of the commission not quite understanding what you were voting on.
And Ms. Taylor, can I move to withdraw or
Generally the chair does not move.
That's what I
okay, I can do that for you then. I move to withdraw the vote so that we can discuss it again.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Malik. Okay, so back to tree amendment number 2. I believe that.
Shall we vote on that motion first? The one.
Oh, yeah. Great. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Callahan.
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn.
Yes.
Commissioner Malik.
Aye.
Vice Chair Wamashonje.
Oh, aye.
And Chair Sager.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, and sorry for the confusion, everybody. So tree amendment number 2. I think probably then it would be easiest if we went through each definition and motion to approve each individual definition. Is that how we would do that?
I can show what the definitions are. There's 3 of them within number 2, and then you could move to amend one of those definitions. But it sounds like you'd have to vote on amendment number 2 as a whole, not separately.
Right. So we vote on amendment number 2 and then we amend. Correct?
No.
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 Gosh, I'm sorry.
So somebody's going to move to recommend approval of amendment 2 as presented by staff. Second, then you open up for discussion. And then if you have amendments to those, to the language in that amendment to those individual definitions, then somebody would do a sub motion to say, I move to amend the definition of the landmark tree or whatever to be this. And then there would be a vote on that. There'd be a second and then a vote on that. And then you could move through the other ones. And once that's all done, you'd come back to the main motion as amended if anything has been approved, and you vote on that main motion again.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so let's do we have somebody that would like to make a motion for tree amendment number 2 to approve?
Sorry, so this is a main motion to approve tree amendment. Okay, so I move to approve tree amendment number 2 and forward a recommendation to City Council. And then, sorry.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Was that you, Commissioner Lynn, that said second?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Callahan, yes.
So yes, I moved also to amend number C2, page 35, definition of a landmark tree from over 30 inches DBH to 24 inches DBH.
Great. Do we have a second on that amendment by Commissioner Callahan? Can I second? That's my, is that procedurally, can I second?
Yes, you can second for the purpose of discussion.
Thank you. Second, Commissioner Callahan, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, so I do want us to go further in saving trees, and I think this is what a lot of jurisdictions are doing, is they're lowering these numbers so that more trees fall under protection. And we've heard from so many people, this is very important. And the fact that several other local cities are doing this, I think that just speaks volumes to me. I think the fact that it may benefit from some further refinement and further study is not a reason to stop this right now. I think, we should be going further to save trees. And I feel like this move is something that a lot of other cities are doing, and it's not it's a very common thing to be doing right now. So that's why I support this.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I agree. I think that it's important. I think we need to we really need to just take it serious, and we need to start somewhere, and we need to listen to the people that have spoken. They've done their research. We've done ours. We've looked at others, and this is important, and trees are important. So I agree. Would anybody else like to speak to Commissioner Callahan's proposed amendment to this motion? Seeing no hands, then I believe we will call a vote for the amendment to the main motion.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So this is for the amendment to the main motion on C2, and Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wamashonje,
Yes.
Commissioner Malik,
Nay.
Chair Sager.
Yes. Okay, that 4-1 in favor of the amendment. Is there any other discussion on the tree amendment number 2? If not, then we will call for it. We will have a vote on the main motion as amended.
Okay.
Ms.
All right,
Hochman.
ready? All right.
Yes.
As amended, C2, Commissioner Lin,
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Chair Sager,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wamashonje,
Yes.
and Commissioner Malik. You're muted. I didn't hear.
Sorry, nay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to tree amendment number 3. And we'll make sure that we have seen all of amendment number 3 before we move
Yeah,
to.
number 3 includes the 2 definitions on your screen.
Thank you. Thank you. Would somebody like to make a motion on tree amendment number 3?
I
To
move
approve.
to approve tree amendment number 3 as written.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Seeing no hands, Ms. Hoaxma, will you call roll for a vote?
Yes. Chair Sager,
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Malik,
Aye.
Commissioner Lin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Wamashonje.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next amendment, tree amendment number 5. Does somebody have, would like to motion to approve tree amendment number 5 as written?
I move to approve tree amendment number 5 as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Anybody like to speak to this? Any discussion? All right, let's vote.
Okay, Commissioner Malik
Thank you.
Nay.
and Vice Chair Wamashonje.
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn,
Aye.
Chair Sager,
Yes.
and Commissioner Callahan.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. 4-1 in favor of that. Next one. Tree amendment number 6. Regarding best management practices. And a
Takes
lot of
up,
other things.
yeah. This is 4 slides. There's a lot of added language. This one might be easier to look at in your packet maybe, but
Right.
yeah.
Is there anything specific that anybody would like to have Mr. Zaffron put up on the screen? Any particular part of this? Is everybody familiar with all the different parts of tree amendment number 6? Does anybody have any questions regarding this? Okay, let's go ahead and would somebody like to make a motion to approve tree amendment number 6 as written?
I move to approve tree amendment number 6 as written in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Callahan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynn. Commissioner Callahan, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Anybody have any questions or comments?
I do.
Yes.
I just have real concerns with the fact that we're trying to devise our own science here and that we're pandering to, a group that's very focused on using trees alone as a solution to carbon footprint and global warming. I think trees are important. Again, I'll restate it. I think it's a moniker to the city of Shoreline. It's a meritable, wonderful goal. It makes it a beautiful place to live. I love living here, 20 years resident, big part of it. But I also feel like we'll lose more trees if we don't address bigger problems that are happening around us. Trees are great carbon sponges, but not putting carbon into the air at all is an even better way or as good a way to mitigate the global warming issue and help address it. And by that, I mean, when you start addressing these things in the R48, the MURs, and start protecting trees in those areas, yeah, you might gain a little bit of beauty. It doesn't mean that beauty couldn't be obtained or trees couldn't be planted and landscaping couldn't be done as there's inducements for that in the plaza areas, et cetera. But to insist upon it and it interfering with any kind of or compromising any kind of density there is counterproductive to our goal here. Our goal is to get, reasonable income housing, low income housing, and not just that, but good housing that's all housing that is dense and located near a multimodal corridor so that, we're not using cars. And so that there's a large number of these folks who don't have to have cars at all or have one car instead of 2. I just feel like that's being overlooked here. And so, eliminating carbon from the environment by concentrating density in a place that's so geared for it in such a way, and to compromise that at all. One tree could knock out multiple housing units in one of these projects. It's just counterproductive to what our goal is there, and I think it needs to be revisited.
Thank you, Commissioner Malik. Anybody else? Great. Okay. Let's vote on the motion to approve tree amendment number 6. Ms. Hoeksma.
Okay. Commissioner Lynn.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Malik.
Nay.
Commissioner Callahan.
Yes.
Vice Chair Wamashonje.
Yes.
Chair Sager.
Yes. Great. Thank you. That motion is approved. Moving on to tree amendment number 8. Increasing the minimum tree retention requirements from 20 to 25%. Is there a motion to approve tree amendment number 8?
I'll do that. I move to approve tree amendment number 8 to City Council
Thank you.
as written.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Would either one of you like to speak to this? Anybody have any questions or comments regarding tree amendment number 8?
I just have a little bit to add. I am happy to understand that for most from staff's report that many development has been doing saving over 25% of significant trees. So I think have this it's nature to move to this direction, raise the requirement to 25%. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, let's vote on the motion to approve tree amendment number 8. Ms. Hoeksma.
Thank you. Commissioner Callahan.
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn.
Aye.
Commissioner Malik.
Aye.
Commissioner Chair Sager.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Wamashonje.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Moving on. Tree amendment number 9, significant tree retention. Do we have a motion to approve tree amendment number 9?
I move to approve tree amendment number 9 as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynn. Commissioner Callahan, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, I think it's important for the director to have this authority in those rare cases where waiving may be really helpful for a homeowner who has a difficult situation. I think it's important for the director to have this authority.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Lynn.
Yeah, I also would like to, before our code to become more well-defined, I think this will allow some flexibility for director to make adjustment for specific condition. However, I would like to put a note in here that from the future development or from the past development, there must be some more specific site requirement or situation events that happened in the past that was able to put into the code as what I call it more refined. So there is this worry, or the residents worry about this is a loophole for development to be allowed to take down additional trees or take down trees that they shouldn't be taken down. So to like close that worry, or I think this is a note to that we can refine the special or the allowed approval condition to be written in the code. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no hands, let's put this to a vote. Ms. Hoeksma?
Okay. This is for C9, Chair Sager,
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lin,
Yes.
Commissioner Malik,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wamoshonje.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And tree amendment number 11, tree protection standards.
This is the one that increases the height of the fence, gets rid of the plastic fencing around the tree, and then references work in or around the critical root zone. So I'll updates the tree protection standards.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Lin.
Yeah, I move to approve tree amendment number 11 as written to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Commissioner Lin, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, I think this is really a very good direction to protect those trees that are supposed to be saved. And I think there are further mechanism that can be done, or further requirement that in the city regulation that can be strengthened to protect those trees and assure their continuing vitality. So I think this moving into a good direction. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
So staff is clear on this one. We're recommending that the language in number 1 be not struck. So staff's recommendation on is what you see, and then number 1, the pruning of visible deadwood on trees would stay in the code.
Thank you. Anybody else have something comments or questions on tree amendment number 11? Vice Chair Ramachandra.
I just need a little bit of more understanding on how construction would happen within the brick line of the trees. My concern is, without understanding that exactly how that would happen, then it would limit your ability to even build a road. So I just need that understanding.
So you're speaking to perhaps item E, where if any construction needs to be performed inside, and this could happen with machinery or construction materials. The only way to access a portion of the site is through or around a critical root zone. Then
Correct.
at
Yes.
that point, yeah, there would have to be, I believe there would have to be an arborist on site just to make sure that there isn't any damage to that tree. But that's a circumstance where perhaps there would be activity happening in or around the critical root zone.
Does that clarify for you?
Yes, it does.
Great. Anybody else? Comments, questions? All right, let's put this to a vote as well. Ms. Hoeksma?
You know what? I have one quick comment. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
I guess my concern here, it seems excessive to expect that an arborist be there. I'm just not sure what service they would provide. I mean, I guess it would be a good thing in a sense that it's a visible reminder, hey, this is really important. We have a professional out here, who's calling attention to the importance of observing these drip zones and stuff. But I think we also have the fact that that tree needs to survive as part of the permitting and all. Am I right, Mr. Saffron? I mean, if it's supposed to be protected, it needs to survive, and that's part of the bond and all that. Correct?
Yeah, and this amendment would go to further that goal of having that tree survive.
It's added on to, it's additive. It's not really a pun intended, not a root a root element of it. I think it's really something that is I think it's in and above what needs to be done, and I think it's excessive. Once someone makes an amendment, I can make a sub motion. Or once someone makes a motion to this, I can make a sub motion amending that. That portion of it.
I think you have to make that sub motion before you vote on the amendment.
Yes.
I'd like to make a sub motion regarding tree amendment 11, part E. I'd like to strike part E.
All right. Is there a second to Commissioner Malik's amendment, striking E from tree amendment number 11? I do not see a second on this. That amendment is denied, I guess is how you would say it. Commissioner Lynn, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I just want to, for my understanding, if I can explain a little bit from what I understand, it is the trees, the protective fence usually is put up around the critical root zone, and I think this E is explaining that if the work will somehow need to impact inside of that, right at that root zone area or inside of the critical root zone, then then the arborist will need to be called to make this clean cut that will help the tree's survivability. Instead of allowing, however, the contractor will do or needing to cut a trench or something that may adversely impact the tree that's supposed to be saved. So that is my understanding.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, let's bring this to a vote for tree amendment number 11. I'm sorry, have we made a motion to?
Yes, we have a
Uh,
motion
Thank you. Let's vote on that then,
in a
please.
second. Okay, Commissioner Lynn,
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wamashonje,
Yes.
Commissioner Malik,
Nay.
okay, Commissioner or Chair Sager.
Yes.
So that's the list of the staff recommended amendments.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor.
Sorry. So it sounds like you're done with the tree amendment. So you had a main motion to recommend approval of the tree amendments as presented by staff. So now you would do the vote on that main motion as amended by the Planning Commission, because you had those amendments to those internal amendments in the tree package. Correct?
Got it, yes. Thank you.
So now, Ms. Hoekstra could call for the vote, or you could call for the vote on the main motion as amended by the Planning Commission.
Okay, so that didn't need to be, oh, okay. Oh, maybe they did say that. Okay, so this is for all of them that you already, yeah. Okay, so Chair Sager,
Yes.
Chair, and Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn,
Yes.
Commissioner Malik,
Nay.
and Vice Chair Wamashonje.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. All right. I believe we are moving on to our study item. It is 8:47, however. I'm sorry, Commissioner Lynn, yes.
So, so now for those that are denied or by staff,
Yes.
will those be still forward to City Council? That's more of a question.
Yes.
Uh-huh,
Yes.
I see. And
All the amendments. Yeah.
and so we are not to vote on those.
This
Ms.
is,
Taylor?
yes. Am I on? Yes, I am.
Yes.
You could present a motion to recommend to the city council approval of those amendments that planning staff has not recommended approval of, and state those amendments that you'd be wanting to move forward on that. Get a second, and you could discuss and vote on that if you so choose. If not, council will still be getting those amendments in their package, just with without your recommendation attached to it.
Thank you. Is there more that anybody would like to discuss or motion for in the trees? Commissioner Lynn.
Yeah, I think I would just like to make a note. I think staff has done a study through those that denied item, and but I'd like to raise a note on this 6-inch versus 8-inch tree, significant tree definition. I This note is meant to raise that if there is a possibility to study further, that if allowing the 6-inch tree to be toward significant trees, if that will actually, in fact, help retaining, even though those trees may be smaller, retaining those smaller trees, but in a more suitable or desirable location. So I would say that is a topic to deserve further study and get a more kind of, for right now, we do not know if we shift from 8-inch to 6-inch. So what is the impact to in general properties developability, if that has a positive impact or indeed it's not a good direction. So that is a note that I think deserve to put in there for further consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I would just like to say that I agree with Commissioner Lin on that point.
Thank you. I also agree with Commissioner Lin on that. Ms. Taylor.
Sorry. When I draft the recommendation letter to the council that I draft, I will include some of these points and notes that you guys have raised, some of these concerns, specifically that last one that Commissioner Lin mentioned. So when I forward that to you, Chair, you can see if there's those other points that the commission was really interested in, to let the council know of these things.
Great, great. Vice Chair Ramachandra.
Yeah, I just was wondering from staff if there are incentives or opportunities to give to developers to work, say, with neighboring plots to see if you cut a tree here, you can plant a tree. You can plant a tree on a neighboring property. In other words, can a developer pay a neighbor so that they plant a tree there? So in other words, you are just the balancing act where a tree is cut here, but somewhere else you are planting, or you are planting within the same community, within the same neighborhood. In other words, you are looking holistically at a neighborhood and the number of trees within that neighborhood that has been removed. So if I have on my property, if I'm willing for a developer to come and plant there, would that offset the tree that was cut somewhere else? Okay, then when we talk of significant trees and you say, oh, 6 inches, would a 6-inch tree be the appropriate tree? So I didn't see any way out, so that I didn't, in our effort, I didn't see that balance where we are writing regulation that at the my time promotes counterbalances. So my thinking is that if we look at that way, you are being responsible in your legislation formulation. Here we are being restrictive without providing, I think, way out. And I think there's opportunity for that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I know our regulations say that you need to replant the trees on site, or you can pay for the trees that you can't put back on site. I don't remember. I don't know if Director Markle or Andrew knows if we can replant off-site or not for those required trees. I'm not sure. but maybe we can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Malik?
Yeah, no, to Vice Chair Ramachandran's point, yeah, that kind of tree swap, land swap, they used to do it with the park services. They would allow, in the same community for you, if you're having to remove one, you could plant it in a park. I don't know if they got overwhelmed, overrun, or it was difficult to maybe, appropriately place them, because the park services has a broader scope. I think they have a landscape architect plan they have to follow as well, and probably and that to just have people planting trees without coming under some sort of plan. I don't know why that ever stopped. It seemed like a great idea, but I'm sure that had something to do with planning or design. But no, for me, I just wanted to make a broad comment. I don't hate trees. I love trees. I just feel like it's really important that we don't fall down this path where we're starting to create landscape architect permits and plans for every individual residential home. You would hope that we wouldn't have to be that rigid, that most everybody would know and acknowledge, hey, there's a code out there that says we need these trees, we have to have them, and do everything you can to preserve them. In the residential corridor, but in the density corridors, and where it's just interfering with, again, density and multimodal corridor transit oriented development, I just don't think they belong. And I think that we really need more science behind how these trees are going to be impacted, rather than doing it all at once in a rush when we discover, oh, Josh, we missed this or we missed that, or as Mr. Eglick had commented, solar panels and things of that nature. To kind of take that into mind now is, I think, really important for us all. But yeah, I mean, anyway, I really do. And back to Vice Chair Ramachandran's point, yeah, keeping more trees in the community by some sort of swap. They do it for wetlands, they do it for a lot of different things, and maybe we could figure something like that in our code.
Thank you. Commissioner Lynn?
Yeah, and I totally agree with what Commissioner Malik and Vice Chair's a more creative thinking of how we manage, have a big picture of how we manage shoreline's trees. And to that point, I'd like to also raise, that in the next step, if we can look at the big picture and looking at how we manage those bigger parcels with like majority of, or there's a lot of trees within those larger parcels. If we have a more similar, more like forest management overlay to look at if the tree regulation or tree removal or preservation permit within those areas are slightly different from the residential area. And that is to Commissioner Malik's point of having a bigger picture of looking at our shoreline community, and like the in the Sarton area, they do have a large tree tract, and we also look at some areas that already have extensive, like maybe the NGPA or the tree green belts. I'm not very familiar with city's definition, but if looking at those areas, then maybe the development requirement is a little bit different from the single lot area that we are looking at, just small unit, because that is a larger community that have I call it having a different overlay on top. And I think we still have a lot to refine and make our code better. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Markle.
I took a minute to look up that provision on whether you could plant trees on other lots, and it actually says in the code now you can relocate a tree that's meant to be saved but on another lot, but not, it doesn't have in there that you can plant replacement trees. So I thought that was interesting. I think it used to say something about that. So there you have it.
Interesting. All right, great discussion tonight about trees, especially. A lot of work for everybody, and I appreciate all of it. Are we ready to move on? Okay.
So did you want to discuss the docket then?
Yeah, well, I did note the time. It is 9:01, but if everybody is still interested, I'm game. That is the next item on the agenda.
Let me. And I can move through this quickly in the consideration of time.
Okay.
So the annual docket process is regulated by the Growth Management Act, which states that the city can only update its comprehensive plan once a year. Those amendments need to be put on a docket, or just is basically the docket is just a list of proposed amendments. So these are amendments that have been collected through December of 2021. Anyone may propose an amendment to the docket, and the council may add amendments throughout the establishment of the final docket. None of the items on the docket that you've seen have been evaluated. And so tonight the commission is just looking at those and recommending if those should stay on the docket, and staff should study those this year. Amendment number 1, this was to amend the transportation master plan and also update the transportation element of the comp plan, which includes all the transportation goals and policies. Amendment number 2, this is kind of an encompassing item to start the major update of the city's comprehensive plan, which, like amendment number 1, includes the transportation element, but also the land use element, environmental sustainability, community design, parks. So the state requires us to do an update of a major update of the comprehensive plan to make sure that the city's development regulations and the city's critical areas ordinance are all consistent with our comprehensive plan. So staff has included a kind of a proposed outline schedule throughout this year through 2024 to do a major update of the comprehensive plan. Some elements will come before others in an effort to split it up, and also to tag along with other departments as they're updating their functional plans, like the surface water master plan and the transportation master plan, and the parks rec and open space plan. So this is due by June 2024, and this item would allow us to start looking at different elements of the comprehensive plan as we update it through 2024. Amendment number 3, this is a carryover from last year. King County is requesting to change the land use designation and the zoning on the King County Metro Park and Ride lot on Aurora and 192nd. So the proposal would to get rid of the public facility designation and update the land use to a mixed use one, which is the designation all up and down Aurora Avenue. And then at the same time, there's a little portion of the site to the west there that's zoned R18. So the request would be to change that to mixed business like the rest of the parking ride is designated. And this is for the King County is working on transit oriented development on that site, putting a plan together, and they'll be soon doing public outreach with the community to see what that would look like, while also providing housing and park and ride spaces as it currently is. So that is amendment number 3. Amendment number 4 is a privately initiated amendment to add a new land use element policy pertaining to housing development and the preservation of significant trees can coexist with the goal of maintaining and increasing Shoreline's urban tree canopy. And this would be a new policy that would go into the land use element. And then amendment number 5, this is a request to add goals and policies related to short-term rental. Staff's justification, you'll see in the staff report, is not to add this to the comprehensive plan docket. This is perhaps more of a project-related development code amendment type request. And perhaps this would be something that the council could direct staff to do in a separate project through the development code process, as opposed to the comprehensive plan. So with that, staff is recommending that amendments 1, 2, 3, and 4 be included on the final docket. And then, so after this, the draft docket would go to the council. They would look at your recommendation, possibly add some other things to it. And then once that final docket is established, staff will work on those items on the docket. Those would come back through Planning Commission, through discussions and a public hearing, and then back to council if any actual changes were made. So that is a quick update on the docket process. So at this point, we're asking for commission to make a recommendation that items 1 through 4 on the docket go to council with approval. You're muted. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for that quick overview. Does anybody, I see Vice Chair Ramachandra.
I was wondering if we have to vote on that, or we need to make a motion, or it's just vote yea or nay.
Typically, it's been a motion in the past to recommend approval, but maybe Julie can clarify. I know we've done a motion.
Yes, it'd be a motion to recommend the staff's recommendation to council for placing on the final docket.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Ramachandra.
I would like to move to approve adding to cancel the docket list amendments for study as presented by staff.
Great, thank you. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Malik. Vice Chair Ramachandra, would you like to speak about this?
Yes, I'm actually more interested in the order, because the comprehensive plan looks like really very critical because all the other developmental plans are out of that comprehensive plan, correct? They need to align with that plan. And then it looks like also the recommendations we just made right now when it comes to trees, somehow, whatever the urban forestry planning comes up or whatever, or development plans, land use plans, will also have to borrow from some of that. Is that correct?
We always want the functional plans and the city's other plans, projects that we do is to align with the comprehensive. The comprehensive plan is the umbrella. Everything needs to be consistent with that, correct? So if we need to make adjustments to goals and policies, then we can do that through the major update.
So I'm really in support of that because it's very critical to have that comprehensive plan in order to also get federal grants and state grants. So that needs to be in place, and it's really important work for the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions on this? All right, shall we do a quick vote on approving the motion? Ms. Hoeksma?
All right. Vice Chair Wamashonje,
Aye.
Commissioner Malik,
Aye.
Commissioner Lynn,
Aye.
Chair Sager,
Yes.
and Commissioner Callahan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Zafran, is there anything else you need from us at this time?
No, that's great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We are moving on to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business tonight? Hearing none. New business. No new business.
I would like to mention one thing that's kind of percolating in the community. It's about park access. And one of our community members, Mr. Tom McCormick, is working on that. So as those emails come in, if we could give it some due diligence and just some time to read them. He goes to a lot of trouble to put that stuff together and to observe. And I think he's just doing a great job, and he's doing it single-handedly. And it's I think it's all for a good effort to keep our parks accessible and safe accessibility. So thanks.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I agree. Reports of committees and commissioners, or any announcements? Nothing. Okay. What is the agenda for the next meeting, February 17th?
We will have Nora Daly Pang from Transportation Public Works to go over the Transportation Master Plan, multimodal level of service, and that's a study item on your agenda.
Great, thank you. All right, if there is nothing else, then this meeting is adjourned, and I appreciate everybody and all their hard work. See you guys in 2 weeks.
All right.